I don't know, I was never really a big fan of hers. Somehow I felt that there is something destructive about her. I might be wrong. I cannot judge the actress herself, but the character that she brought on screen never really had a mass appeal. I think that the real star of all Mabel's series was actually Chubby Buckle.
These little films were very well received.
I was so used to my grandmother's elaborate costumes, and we have in the attic, we had this box full of the cheapest hand-sewn costumes you can imagine, and it was, she actually wore in one of her films, and there's a story that my mom always tells me that, that's sort of one of their falling in love moments. It's like they fought about all this stuff. She's like, well, can't you do this way? We have the money to, get this, get that, this prop, this outfit, and he wanted her to wear this specific gown, and in his head, I guess it was perfect. And once she put it on, it was just made for her, like a glove, and it's something that we've always kept. And in that, I've heard that, he always made everything himself. He got the crew done cheaply and team-oriented as possible, and so they could have control over everything that they wanted to produce for these films. And so, at the end of the day, I think, Ginny, she loved his style and at making everything from the cheap, and it's just, it worked for her. I mean, she's used to being this glamorous money, but sometimes when you just get down to it and it's, you feel, the reason why you're making the movie.
We got along very well. We had a good relationship, a good working relationship, a good relationship. But I was ready to move on.
After this, she left Briscoe for New York to become a Broadway actress. Her film career only lasted 10 years, but her theatre career lasted more than half a century. When sound broke out, she was already gaining great success as a stage actress, and she never worked on a talkie.
Genevieve Jones, who I hold in my heart as Granny, left Chubby Buckle to go to New York City because she didn't feel that she could do justice in the film industry, and her true passion was in Broadway. And she didn't want to mislead Chubby and to let him thinking that he had to compromise himself and that he couldn't pursue his film career.
I think they had a plan that, they wanted to be successful on their own right, and, she's successful on stage, he's this new up-and-coming filmmaker, and I think they had the plan to always be together, but it just naturally it fell apart once she got more famous doing her work.
And so obviously being celebrities, differences in career goals, their relationships were kind of up and down.
I don't think it was ever an intention to, break his heart, leave him, but it was just of the time. I think everything was moving forward so fast, and the film industry is two different coasts, so you can't really, they didn't really know how to deal with it because it was all fresh and new, and it just happened. They went their separate ways.
He's hurt. He was hurt, and this has come through in so many of his films.
And she just didn't want to lead him on, so he always did everything in the world to try to win her over, and she just... My cousin has this idealistic idea of who this person was. She wanted to, make up stories, and she wanted a solid answer of why it didn't work. So, but he was probably just stuck in his Hollywood apartment writing and making his movies and going crazy.
Oh, I think his girlfriend leaving him because he was kind of heartless, and a person abandoning him because he had abandonment issues with girlfriends and family, and so I think that affected him more.
I think he did fall into very steep depression. Some of his later films, right after the breakup, reflected that. There was An Office Affair and Windy City, particularly, which involved him having these, flings with random women, which were kind of another idea of him living vicariously through his desires. And those didn't do very well because they wanted to see Mabel instead of these random women, and so the critics were kind of confused by that at first.
When Genevieve left him after 1922's Mabel's Mummy, Briscoe didn't write anything for almost a year, coasting on scripts he had written while being inspired by his muse. From 1923 until 1930, Briscoe made 15 films, but he never had a long-term leading lady relationship again. All his co-stars from this point would only be in a few films, and then Briscoe would find someone else to replace her. Many of these actresses were good, and although Briscoe even dated a few, he never wanted to set up a real relationship again with his leading lady for fear of abandonment. The period of the 20s saw prohibition enter the law, and although Briscoe was known as a non-drinker, he didn't support the law. He was a liberal who thought that anyone should be able to do what they wanted to do, as long as no one was hurt. His film, 1925's The Angel Made Him Do It, clearly showed his politics on this subject. He also wasn't a smoker and didn't have any vices that anyone ever mentioned or wrote about, but he supported those who did. Briscoe had just finished the film Chubby's Day at the Races, when he had a meeting in New York with a cadre of theatre owners who demanded that he start making talkies. Most silent actors had acting styles that were not compatible with sound, but the movie stars had the even larger problem of having voices that didn't fit what people's perceptions of them were. Chubby didn't even think that his films would be funny if he used sound. Charles Chaplin and Buster Keaton were hesitant to jump into talkies, but they wanted to continue to work, and Harold Lloyd's films did even bigger box office when he went into sound. All this encouraged Chubby to take the plunge. In 1930, 3 years after the jazz singer changed everything, Chubby Buckle spoke his first lines on film, in A City Job. But it wasn't to be seen by the public. A City Job was a comedy that had a serious plot about a farmer losing his employment and not being able to keep his family. Despite the theatre owners liking the plot, they hated Chubby's high-pitched New York accent. J.D. Stiles, a prominent owner and investor in the Chubby Buckle films, wrote,
"For the last 10 years, Mr. Buckle has been seen as a figure of respect, but he sounds like a soprano hoodlum."
The film was never released. Most of the prints were destroyed, and they made Briscoe sign an agreement to bar him from acting in any film that he directed. His career as an actor was over.
Well, it turns out that Chubby didn't have a very appealing voice.
With his high-pitched New York accent, voice, and everything, he wasn't suitable for sync sound. And so his acting career pretty much ruined because of that. He now turned all of his talents and sights to writing and directing. So.
Chalk on the chalkboard is one of the descriptions.
I no longer really was in much contact with Briscoe. He went on for a while until about 1936, but talking motion pictures spoiled it for a lot of the men in the silent era. A bad speaking voice, not able to adapt to the new media. I didn't hear from him.
A controversy over the years arose when it was discovered that the soundtrack could have been tampered with to make Chubby sound bad. Co-workers at the time never had a problem with his voice, nor was any mention of an annoying voice made before A City Job was completed. So was he set up to fail, or was his voice really that bad? Miraculously, a single clip from A City Job has survived, and we now present it to you to make your own opinion.
How you doing, Mr. Buckle?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How's the wife?
Oh, wife's doing really well, yes. I really like being here. You know,
Very nice, very nice.
well, I think I'm going to get going there. Well, you work out good.